16 years ago, on a quiet February night, a teenage girl named Sarah Chen walked home through falling snow. She never arrived. The snow covered everything, the roads, the footprints, and eventually, the truth. The investigation burned bright for months, then slowly faded. Evidence was boxed up. Questions were left hanging in the cold air. People moved on. Or at least, they tried to. But some cases don't sleep. They wait. They sit in the dark corners of dusty shelves, whispering to anyone brave enough to listen. I wasn't there that night. But the moment I opened those old files, it felt like Sarah was calling out through the years, asking one simple question, asterisk, asterisk. Will you finally see what everyone else missed? Sullivan. I've gone through all of Morrison's old files, every page, every note, every interview. It feels like he never stopped working on this case. His handwriting is everywhere. He cared deeply about finding the truth. Hayes. Morrison gave his life to this case, Jimmy. It followed him home. It sat with him at the dinner table. Don't let it swallow you too. Sullivan. I'm just reviewing, getting familiar with the big unsolved ones. That's all. Hayes. That's what Morrison said in the beginning. Just promise me. Keep a line between your work and your life. Sullivan. I promise. But this case, something about it doesn't sit right. Mrs. Vance. Detective. I've told this story so many times I can say it in my sleep. Sarah came by that night to return my mug. She stayed a few minutes. We talked about the storm. Then she left to walk home. That's all I know. Sullivan. I understand, Mrs. Vance. I know this must be hard to keep repeating. But small details can matter, even after all these years. Mrs. Vance, there's nothing else to say. She smiled, she waved, and she walked off into the snow. She was such a sweet girl. It still hurts thinking about that night. Sullivan, thank you for your time. If you remember even the smallest thing, please let me know. Derek. 16 years, detective. 16. I've answered the same questions over and over. I've lived under the shadow of suspicion all this time. Sullivan. I'm not accusing you of anything, Derek. I'm just checking every piece again. Derek. I lost my best friend that night. People whispered. Some still do. They looked at me like I was hiding something. I moved away, tried to start over, but Sarah's face never left me. Sullivan. I can imagine how hard that's been. Derek. No, you can't. Every Valentine's Day, it hits me again. That night froze everything in place. Sullivan. I'm going to look at this case from every angle. Sometimes, answers hide in places no one expects. Derek. Just don't expect me to give you some new story. I told the truth back then. It hasn't changed. Linda Chen. Detective. When I saw the number on my phone, my heart started racing. I've waited years for this. Every knock on the door, every phone call, I hoped it would be someone saying they found her. Sullivan. I wish I had new answers right now. I don't. But I wanted to speak to you personally. Linda Chen. Every day, I imagine Sarah walking through that door. 16 years is a long time to live in silence. Do you think there's still hope? Sullivan. Yes, I do. I can't promise how fast, but I promise I'll look at everything again. Fresh eyes. No shortcuts. Linda Chen. All I've ever wanted is the truth. I don't care how painful it is. I just need to know what happened to my little girl. Sullivan. You deserve that. She deserves that. Linda Chen. Please don't give up like some of the others did. Sullivan. I won't. Not this time. Hayes. You've got that look again, Jimmy. The same look Morrison had. Sullivan. This case is calling me. I can feel it. There's something here everyone missed. Hayes. Just be careful. The past can pull you in deeper than you think. Sullivan. I'm not turning back now. Dr. Martinez. Detective Sullivan. Thank you for bringing in the old evidence boxes. We went through every item carefully. Some of the material was well preserved. That helped us a lot. Sullivan. These boxes have been sitting untouched for years. Morrison kept everything neat. He believed the answers were inside, even if the technology back then couldn't see it. Dr. Martinez. He was right to keep it safe. Science has changed a lot since 2003. We can now pull tiny DNA samples from fibers that used to give us nothing. Sullivan. So, did you find something? Dr. Martinez. Yes. On Sarah's coat, inside the collar area, we found several small fibers. From those fibers, we were able to extract a partial male DNA profile. 13 genetic markers. It's not a full profile, but it's strong enough to compare. Sullivan. Male. That changes the whole direction of the case. Dr. Martinez. There's more. On the same fibers, we found traces of commercial-grade soap. Not household soap. The kind used in hospitals, schools, and large institutions. That might help narrow down where the person worked or spent time. Sullivan. So whoever was close enough to leave DNA also likely worked somewhere that used industrial soap. That's a big clue. Dr. Martinez. Exactly. Back then, we didn't have the sensitivity to detect such traces. But today, these small details can point us to the right person. Sullivan. I need this DNA entered into CODIS. If he's ever been arrested, or if his DNA was collected, there's a chance we'll get a hit. Dr. Martinez. It's already in the system. But keep in mind, if the person was never arrested or never had their DNA collected, we won't get a match that way. Sullivan. Then, we do it the old-fashioned way. We start with people who had any connection to Sarah. We look at those who had access to her path home, or to the Vance house, or the neighborhood. Dr. Martinez. You might also want to focus on employees of institutions nearby during that time. That soap residue is rare. Sullivan. I'll start pulling records. Maintenance workers, hospital staff, school employees, anyone who fits. Hayes. You've been pacing around like a man waiting for a miracle. What happened? Sullivan. Science happened. They found male DNA on Sarah's coat, and traces of industrial soap. Mon. Hayes. After all these years, that's incredible. Sullivan. For the first time, I'm not just chasing shadows. I've got something real, something we can build on. Hayes. I can see that fire in your eyes again. Just keep your feet on the ground. Don't lose yourself like Morrison did. Sullivan. Morrison held on to this case because he believed the truth was buried in the evidence. He was right. It just needed time and science. Linda Chen, detective. I heard you went back to the lab. Please tell me there's something new. Sullivan. Yes, Linda. For the first time in years, we found new evidence. It's not everything, but it's a real step forward. Linda Chen. What does that mean? Sullivan. It means we have a piece of someone, a clue they didn't even know they left behind. Linda Chen. After so long, it feels like Sarah's voice is finally being heard again. Sullivan. That's exactly what this is. Her coat kept a secret all these years. Now it's speaking. Sullivan. On phone. This is Detective Sullivan. I need to speak to the lab urgent. Did we get anything from the DNA comparison? Lab tech. Yes, detective. The partial DNA you submitted matched a profile in a local employment database. The name is Robert Vance. Sullivan. Robert Vance. Is that connected to Mrs. Elena Vance? LAB Tech. Yes, he's her nephew. He worked as a maintenance supervisor at the county medical center back then. His DNA wasn't in the criminal system, but it was on file because of a work program. Sullivan. Send me everything you have on him: employment history, address, any records. Hayes. Robert Vance. I know that name. He used to help his aunt around the neighborhood. Everyone thought he was just a quiet guy. Sullivan. According to the records, he had access to the Vance house. He also worked at the hospital, exactly the kind of place that uses the soap we found on the fibers. Hayes. So he was right there, in plain sight, all these years. Sullivan. Yes. He visited his aunt often. Sarah went to Elena's house that night. He could have seen her. He could have followed her. Hayes. Why didn't he come up before? Asterisk, asterisk, Sullivan. Asterisk, asterisk. He was never on the suspect list. No criminal history. People trusted him. He helped fix neighbors' fences and cleared snow from driveways. Nobody thought to look at him twice. Hayes. Sometimes the quiet ones stand the closest to the storm. Sullivan. I want to see his old employment records. Did he work the night shift during the time Sarah disappeared? Human Resources Officer. Let me check. Yes, on February 14, 2003, he signed out early due to bad weather. He left around 7:45 p.m. Sullivan. Sarah left Mrs. Vance's house just before 8 p.m. That lines up exactly. Human Resources Officer. He lived only a few blocks from the Vance home back then. Sullivan. That's all I need for now. Thank you. Linda Chen. Detective. I can tell something's changed. Your voice sounds different. Did you find someone? Sullivan. Linda. I can't give full details yet, but we've found a name. A real person. Someone who was close, but hidden. Linda Chen. A name. After all this time, I don't know whether to cry or be afraid. Sullivan. I understand. But this is what we've been waiting for. The silence around Sarah's case is starting to break. Linda Chen. Do you think this person hurt her? Sullivan. I think this person knows more than they ever told anyone, and I'm going to find out exactly what that is. Sullivan to himself, softly. Robert Vance. You walked past everyone. You smiled. You blended in. But the truth doesn't stay buried forever. Hayes. You've been staring at that file for hours. Sullivan. Because for the first time in 16 years, we have a name that fits. Robert Vance isn't just a random match. He's been here all along. Hayes. I get it. But we need to move carefully. If he's involved, he's had years to cover his tracks. One wrong step, and he disappears. Sullivan. That's why we tighten the net slowly. No noise. No mistakes. Sullivan, on phone. This is Detective Sullivan. I need Robert Vance's current address, vehicle records, and any recent police contacts. Everything. Dispatcher. Copy that, detective. We'll get you a full background. Sullivan, to himself. Let's see where you've been hiding, Robert. Hours later, Sullivan and Hayes sit in the squad car outside a small, aging house on the edge of town. The paint is peeling, the yard overgrown, but the lights inside are on. Hayes, 16 years later, and he's right here. Sullivan, living quietly, like nothing ever happened. They watch as Robert Vance, now in his late 40s, steps outside briefly to collect his mail. He looks ordinary, calm, polite, the kind of neighbor no one would suspect. But Sullivan's instincts sharpen. Sullivan, quietly, that's him. Hayes. We can't bring him in yet. Not without something solid. Sullivan, we're not bringing him in. Not yet. We're going to build this the right way. Back at the station, files pile up on Sullivan's desk. Employment records, hospital logs, old witness statements. Every line is read, reread, and connected like pieces of a long-forgotten puzzle. They discover Robert had access to restricted hospital areas, including storage rooms with strong disinfectants, the same type of chemical found in the fiber analysis. He also frequently visited his aunt during winter evenings, helping with chores. Hayes. This is tightening. The timeline, his job, his location, it all fits too perfectly. Sullivan. And yet nobody saw him as a threat. Hayes. That's the dangerous part. The quiet ones are easy to forget. Meanwhile, Linda Chen senses the shift. She calls the station more often now, not out of impatience, but hope mixed with fear. Linda Chen. Detective, I can feel it. Something's happening, isn't it? Sullivan. Linda, we're working carefully. I promise you this isn't another dead end. Linda Chen. For 16 years I've carried this weight alone. If this man knew something, if he took her. Her voice cracks. Sullivan softly. We're not letting him slip through our fingers. Not this time. As the investigation intensifies, Robert begins to sense the pressure too. A neighbor reports seeing an unfamiliar car parked near his house multiple nights in a row. Robert calls his aunt, sounding nervous. Mrs. Vance, on phone. Robert, is everything okay? Robert Vance, yeah, Aunt Elena, I think someone's been watching me. Mrs. Vance, maybe it's just your imagination. Robert Vance, no, I can feel it. Something's changing. Back at the station, Hayes finds something buried in old records, a disciplinary note from the hospital. Hayes, Sullivan, look at this. Robert left early that Valentine's night, but 2 weeks before he was caught in an unused wing of the hospital late at night with no clear reason. Sullivan, and they just wrote it off as maintenance check. Hayes, no follow-up, no deeper questions. Sullivan, it was right there. Everyone looked away. The pressure starts to build not only on Robert but on the system itself. Every old oversight, every assumption, every blind spot. Sullivan feels the weight of time pressing down. Hayes, we need a strategy. If he feels the walls closing in, he might run. Sullivan, then we make sure every wall is sealed tight before he realizes it. The arrest of Robert Vance sent shockwaves through Millbrook. For 16 years, he had been part of the community's everyday life, helping neighbors, attending church, fixing things for the elderly. Now, his face was on every news channel, labeled as the man connected to the disappearance that had haunted the town for almost 2 decades. At the sheriff's station, Sullivan sat alone in the quiet interview room after Robert's confession. His hands rested on the file that had consumed his life. For years, the pages had been filled with questions. Now, for the first time, there were answers, dark, painful answers, but answers nonetheless. Hayes, you did it, Jimmy. After all these years. Sullivan, we did it. But it doesn't feel like a victory. Hayes, it never does. Not with cases like this. Outside, reporters gathered. Microphones, cameras, and flashing lights filled the steps of the sheriff's office. They wanted sound bites and headlines. But this wasn't just a story, it was a wound reopening. Across town, Linda Chen received the call she had both longed for and feared. Linda Chen, so it's true? It was him? Sullivan softly. Yes. The DNA match. The confession. We have enough. Her breath caught. 16 years of frozen grief began to thaw all at once. She sank into her kitchen chair, clutching the phone to her chest. Tears flowed not just for the truth, but for all the birthdays missed, the years spent waiting at the window, the nights she whispered Sarah's name into the dark. Linda Chen, I don't even know what to feel. Relief? Anger? I just want to bring her home. Sullivan. And we will. That part isn't over. In the community, reactions were mixed and intense. Some people couldn't believe it. Bob, the handyman? No way. He fixed my roof last winter. He always brought soup to the church potlucks. Others quietly admitted that they had always felt something was off, but never said anything. Trust had been shattered in a way no one could fully express. The idea that the danger had lived quietly among them all this time made people question their memories, their neighbors, even themselves. At the cemetery, Robert began to talk more during questioning. His voice trembled as he described where he had left Sarah. The details were scattered, unclear, broken by years of guilt and silence. But those fragments were enough to send search teams to the outskirts of town, a stretch of woods near a frozen stream, beneath the wide branches of an old oak tree. It was exactly the kind of quiet, hidden place where no one would have thought to look. Days later, Sarah's remains were found. The recovery was careful and respectful. Officers stood silently as the coroner's team worked. The only sounds were the crunch of snow and the soft flapping of police tape in the wind. For the first time since 2003, the Chen family had a place to grieve, a real, tangible place. Linda stood at the site days later. She didn't speak. She simply knelt, placed her hand on the earth, and whispered, "Asterisk. You're not lost anymore." Robert Vance's trial became a national headline. But for Sullivan, the courtroom wasn't where the story truly ended. It ended in the quiet moments after the closing of case files, the returning of evidence boxes to storage, and the sudden stillness that follows when a case that defined your life finally reaches its conclusion. "Hayes, you finally got your answer, Jimmy." Sullivan, "Yeah, but now I have to figure out who I am without this case." He walked through the basement evidence room one last time. The shelves that once held Sarah Chen's boxes now stood empty. 16 years of obsession reduced to a single closed file. For the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to breathe deeply. The case of Sarah Chen shows that the truth may hide in silence, but it never disappears completely. It waits sometimes for years until someone is willing to listen closely and look deeper. Through Detective Sullivan's persistence, modern science, and the courage of those who never gave up, the name hidden in the shadows finally came to light. Robert Vance had blended into everyday life, trusted by neighbors, unnoticed by suspicion. But in the end, every small detail, every piece of evidence, and every unanswered question led straight to him. The community that once lived in fear and uncertainty can now begin to heal. Linda Chen, after 16 long years, received the answers she had prayed for. Though nothing can bring Sarah back, her story now has an ending. And her voice, once lost in the cold, has finally been heard. This case is a reminder that justice may be delayed, but with patience and determination, the truth always finds a way to surface.